Hi everyone, this is Mari Craig, and you're listening to the Small Steps to Wellness show, a podcast where we discuss how we can achieve more wellness in our lives one small step at a time. For the past 6 odd years, I've taken a special interest in nutrition and I've changed the diet of my family on its head. But as I've dived deeper into the world of nutrition, I have learned that health is so much more than just what we put on our plate. This is why on this podcast we will be talking nutrition, mental health, being in alignment, holistic health care, self care, raising children, and more. We will also be hearing stories of women's journeys to overcome trauma and what it has taught them on the way. When we share our stories, we realize we are not alone and that things can change for the better. I'm so glad to have you with me on this journey as I explore what health and wellness truly encompass. If you like what you're hearing, please consider rating the show with a 5-star rating and sharing it with your friends. It really makes a big difference. Now, on with today's show.
Hello and welcome to the Small Steps to Wellness show with me, your host, Mari Craig, where we discuss how we can achieve more wellness in our lives, one small step at a time. Now, it might seem a bit strange that a mum of a 5-month-old baby is talking and finding an interest in menopause, but I have to say, I thought for a minute that's what I was experiencing. Turned out I was pregnant, but I think I'm in the age, and many of my friends are at the age now where we are definitely starting to experience perimenopause, if not menopause symptoms. And I think it is something that we need to educate ourselves on so that we can pass on knowledge to our children eventually and also to our partners. And so we can navigate this new life a little bit better. And so with me today, I've got Lindsay Randerson, women's health coach. She's got her own practice and she is especially interested in menopause. So we're going to talk a little bit about the things we can do to help ourselves. Because I think if we know what to do, we can feel more empowered. Wouldn't you say, Lindsay?
Yeah, definitely. I think if we've got an understanding of maybe the foundations of what we can do for ourselves, then we're not as reliant on other people as well. You know, we can get on and I think that knowledge is really important. I will caveat that with, because most people think that there's this end result that, we're going to be fixed. If we take this is going to happen and it's all going to be, magic and go away. And actually that's not the reality at all, and I see an awful lot of women who just think, okay, if I do this, then all, my symptoms disappear. And we are all so individual that I think we're really got to dig really deep and to explore and get curious about actually what works for us. Because my menopause, I've been in perimenopause for 3.5 years, now transitioned into menopause and been in menopause for the last sort of 7 or 8 months. My first part of my journey was pretty tough. And I went into perimenopause just at the start of lockdown. And so for me, my symptoms were very much about sleep, and I was not sleeping at all. And so I'd probably get between 1, maybe 2 hours of sleep a night. That went on for about 7 months. And that really did take its toll. Potentially, that then was a little bit of a wake-up call for me to really look at what the hell's going on. Because at that point, I just presumed that maybe I'd take HRT and everything would be tickety-boo. Actually, what happened was I did take HRT, some improvements, but it wasn't really the holy grail that I was led to believe. Now, I've been doing an awful lot of work on nutrition. I'm a nutritional coach and lifestyle. And I realized that actually what I needed to do was really strip back and understand what my own individual needs were, and then starting to build that into my everyday. And so that's where I started. It was as just looking at the nutrition, but also bringing in other things. And really my first priority was my sleep, because that was the biggest part of my perimenopause journey, was my bloody sleep. And that impacts everything. It impacts my weight, my mood, my energy with my family. I was really moody bitch most of the 7 or 8 months because I just wasn't getting enough sleep. The impact that had on my relationship, my husband, my kids. I just didn't have the energy to do anything with them. And I'd been told just before we went in that I would need a gynae op to go and just check to see if everything was okay before I was put on HRT. I knew that wasn't really what the problem was. I didn't have any gynae issues, but they were hesitant about putting me on HRT. So I'd actually waited 2.5 years to finally have any HRT. And then I just presumed that I would take this, estrogel and progesterone, and everything was going to be great. And it wasn't. It made some improvements, but fundamentally, for me, what I learned about me was, I'm a stress head. I'm cortisol led. So the stresses and the pressures, and at that point, I think for a lot of people were under financial pressures, was under relationship issues. My daughter wasn't very well. My cortisol levels were sky high, and I wasn't actually doing anything to bring those down. And that impacts my sleep, it impacts my mood, it impacts my weight, it impacts perimenopause. And I didn't really understand the connection between all of those until I started to learn what I learn now. So that was sort of my inroad into my own journey. And now, it's a little bit like I say to my clients, there isn't a magic pill here. It's a transition and it's a journey. And at any point, there'll be fluctuations in there. At any point, there'll be low points. And then we'll feel okay. And then something will come up where the shit will hit the fan and we won't feel great. We won't feel that actually we're coping here. But then that's the time to relook at what you're doing. Are you, pushing yourself too much? Are you working too hard? Are you not taking any breaks? Are you in the gym 5 days a week? Are you, not eating well? Are you up all night? Or, you might be drinking a bit more, or you might be stressing over something, a relationship or toxic friendship or whatever that is. That all has an impact on us. So that was really where I started, and where I start with the clients that come to me is, let's try and put the pieces of what makes you together, and then let's look at the areas that have got most impact, and that might be blood glucose, and it might be cortisol. It could be, sleep, it could be lifestyle, it could be environment. And also there's, for me, there's a genetic, part of the thing as well. As I said, I know now, because I'm a nutrigenomics practitioner, that my genes, I hold estrogen. Okay, I have a SNP on one of my genes, which means that, my phase 3 detoxification process is very, very slow. So I tend to hold a lot of estrogen, and I don't let go, my body doesn't let to get rid of it. So it's potentially hanging around for longer than I need it. So that is understanding how your body's made up, and my environment and how I felt was very much about the stress and the anxiety and the panic attacks, and my own just low mood. were much, much more about the stress that I felt, I was under.
I'm picking up on a couple of things here, Lindsay. One is that we are in a society, I guess, we're sort of so fast paced that we want this one pill or this one thing to do that's just going to cure everything, right? But the other thing that I'm picking up from what you're saying about and your own journey and the clients that you work with is that once, I guess, the realization hits that it's not going to be one thing probably that's going to fix me. I mean, it might happen and that would be amazing, wouldn't it? But it's very empowering then to learn the tools that you can use. So when you said shit hits the fan and you have a bad day or something happens, you kind of have a toolbox then, because you've been learning about it, that's going to help you through those bad days as well.
Yeah, and all those techniques that we think, we're not going to bother with meditation. I'm not going to get up in the morning and get out in the sunlight. And yeah, I get it, because sometimes you just literally want to chuck a duvet over the top of your head and go, no way, Jose, I'm not doing it. But there are practical steps that we can all take, which mean that, when we do those things and we do get outside and we are, morning light is really important for circadian rhythm. And I actually fell back about I did something on Instagram about it and just said about 5 weeks ago, I wasn't sleeping again. And I was trying to figure out exactly what it was that I wasn't doing. And 3 days of the week, I get up in the dark, I go to work in the dark, I work all day, and I come back in the dark. So I wasn't getting any light at all. And I didn't recognize that right away. And I thought, geez, what the heck's going on with my sleep? I'm awake again. I'm getting like 4 hours of sleep a night. And so I had to really prompt myself to go back to the basics, actually what is going on here. And I had recognized that I was getting up in the middle of, it was still dark. I'd get in the car, it was still dark. I would arrive at work getting a bit lighter, but then I was in work all day. And then, I'd come home pitch black. So, and it's very easy to do, isn't it? And then we slip into a habit of, actually, I'm not out in any sunlight at all. And so I tweaked my morning routine so that when I went in to practice, that I was actually getting out for half an hour in the morning when the light came up, and I could actually just sit outside or stand or go for a walk with a little mug of tea and just get some morning light. And that helped massively. But sometimes it can be the simplest things that we overlook because we're looking for the big fix, the bigger stuff. And don't get me wrong, HRT has absolutely long-term benefits, protective benefits, and it's part of this jigsaw. But I think it would be really tragic to say that if we're overlooking everything else that makes up our holistic health in view of just HRT, then in my opinion, we're missing the fundamentals of this amazing time in our life. It should be the most amazing time in our life, to learn a little bit more about us, to learn a little bit more about what is it that our bodies need, what is it that I like now, what is it that I want to do, what is it that I don't know. I was listening to actually it's a documentary, and it's called Finding Joe, and it's it's a real fascinating sort of insight into taking a journey and going on this journey, a hero's journey, and that comes with sort of a little bit of that pain. We have to go through a little bit of that and understand what the heck's going on. And I'm not saying, for some women, it's really tough and painful, and we don't have an end in sight, and if that goes on and on and on and on, it's debilitating and incredibly destructive. And so,
but this is why I think, Lindsay, that that is important to have these conversations, and I think I'd love to get some practical advice from you on where to start, because when you have those dark feelings and you don't know what to do, you don't have a toolbox to reach for, that's where the problems occur, I think. So where can we start? Should we start on food? I'd love to hear sort of what you've been doing to help yourself, and also what you advise clients to do when it comes to nutrition.
Yeah, so when clients come to me, I start off with a food diary. Really, I start off on the basics of looking at what they're currently eating, and I will go through, and it's normally a combination of various things. It can be a combination of too much glucose, too much sugar in the diet, too much of high processed foods, too much salts, too much alcohol, too much caffeine. So those are the things which are going to have an impact. It's not all the impact, because we can eat an awful lot of greens on our plate and still feel frigging miserable. Okay, so, but let's go back to the fundamentals first. Let's look at, are we eating enough protein? Are we eating healthy fats? Are we giving ourselves good quality sources of carbohydrate? And by that, whole grains. Is our diet supportive of our hormone health? Is our gut is a really important part of our hormone synthesis. And so are we giving our gut everything that it needs to be able to support us? And so I'll start with really fundamental is let's look at the foundations first. Have we got those ticked off? And what I'm finding when I'm in practice, and I work with the NHS, so a couple of days a week I'm in looking at patients from GP practices. Those are missing. Those fundamentals are missing. And so it's straight onto antidepressants, which is absolutely a travesty here, and straight onto HRT. But there's none of the other work. There's none of the other, okay, how are you, how are you sleeping, or what are you eating, or are you moving, are you getting outside, what are you actually doing? But there isn't that conversation that's happening at the moment, unless they come to me. So, but, in the 2 GP practices that I do look after, that is now a referral across to me, so that I can look at the lifestyle piece. I can look at the overall picture here. And also, I think the biggest piece that maybe we're overlooking is how our mental health is impacted. Nobody's really talking about our relationships with our husbands, or partners, or, our kids. Because there's a lot of shame and fear around this as to the stigma of it. I'm struggling, but I don't really have a lot of people to talk to about it. So our mental health can go downhill pretty quickly. And that's why I think, some of the work that Dr. Louise Newson's doing, which is opening up these conversations, Davina's doing, is really empowering women to feel able to share. And I'm involved with a company on the mainland, on the Isle of Wight, called Talking Menopause. And that is really about this bit. There is, particularly in corporates, particularly in business, that women are just coping, really just coping in the workplace. And we still don't have a protocol for, actually, can you go to your senior manager and talk about this stuff? Can you go and speak to them about, how you can't get through the day because you can't function and you can't look at a set of, whatever you're working on without brain fog or without feeling really low and anxious or panicky or whatever those symptoms are. We're still not able to share, and we're still not able to open up about them without that fear of that stigma of, God, shut up. It's, it's that conversation again. So when clients come to see me, there's an awful lot of unpacking of that, where they've felt they've not had a lot of people to talk to, and that listening and just having some empathy for what they're going through. And then we start we really just start at the basics. So yes, nutrition is one. The women that I see really, don't have a lot of time to give back to them. Perimenopause and menopause is, I need the time, I need the rest. Your body's going through an awful lot of changes, and the fluctuations in estrogen and progesterone, they impact on every single other hormone. And so if they're, they're having a proper tsunami attack at each other, they're not communicating in a way that's actually supportive. And if we're not listening to what our bodies are doing, then we've got this like total whirlwind going on all the time. It's a little bit like a neighborhood, and every single, neighbor in the neighborhood is having a scrap at each other. They're not talking, they're not communicating, they're just shouting and screaming at each other. That's a little bit like what our hormones are doing. And I do think that everybody is so individual, because we all have different stress responses. We all have different insulin response. We all have different DNA genetic response. We all have different environments. We all have different lifestyles. And so why would my menopause be the same as yours, Maureen? It's going to be different.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And actually, the question was, what do we do nutritionally? But actually, your answer just shows me, though, how it's not just nutrition, it's everything else around it. One thing that I am picking up on from this, and I've spoken to other people about this as well, is that the way our society works, you're supposed to, as a woman, function the way a man functions, who does not have those hormonal fluctuations. And that seems like a battle you can't win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think at some point as well, we have to take responsibility for what we can control. Yeah. What is in our control, and start there. And I think we've given away a lot of our control to expect other people to tell us what to do, to show us what's necessary. And there's nobody that knows your body like you. There is nobody that knows your body like you. And I think we've I feel particularly passionate about that. This gives us an opportunity to actually start to relook at that. What is it that things that I did in my 20s and 30s, I was a gym bunny, I'd go to the gym 5 days a week, I'd do running, I would eat like an absolute piece of lettuce leaf and a tomato, and that was great. That was the diet. Drop a few pounds. That old model doesn't work now. Like now, if I try to implement that now, my body would be screaming at me. And so we have to sort of let go of some of the ways that we've been told we should, because it doesn't work for your body type. It doesn't work for you. And I see an awful lot of clients that revert back to something that maybe have worked in their 20s, but your body's not 20 anymore. You're 50, so it might have worked when you were in the gym in the 80s with the leg warmers and, whatever that was. But now it's not fundamentally the same, because your body's different, your body's changed, but our mentalities haven't. It's the first thing we go to, is if we're starting to put on weight, it's the first thing that go to is diet. Let's take out this, let's take out that, let's take out the other, let's eat in a calorie deficit, and let's then lose the weight. And unfortunately in perimenopause that does the opposite effect. And so we have to nourish our body with good proteins and fats and complex carbs, and we have to nourish our body to be able to support our gut. That's the opposite of what most people will do, because the fallback of that is, I'm going to go back into a diet mode to lose the weight. And then, movement, the exercise bit is the other thing. We sort of get caught up in, okay, in my 20s, I headed into the gym and I did massive amount of cardiovascular stuff. And I was, on the treadmill, and I did the Stairmaster, and I did the, Now, that isn't as supportive for our hormone bodies. Now, we need much more strength training. We need much more movement. We need lymphatic support. We need liver support. We need to detox. We need to clear. We need to clean. And that, again, the fundamentals of that is much more nurture. And so it's not about the doing, it's about the nurture. And that's the feminine, that's the softer side, the most, the beautiful side, the held side. And we're still in this charge of the masculine, of the push, 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 push. And actually there is maybe an opportunity for us to just allow our bodies, give it everything that our body needs to support it and nourish it from a much softer perspective and a much softer, more feminine way.
I was talking to myself there on mute. I was, technology, hey. I absolutely love that. It's about self-compassion, isn't it? And understanding we're not what we once were, and that's okay, and that's fine, and embrace the new, as it were. And also, we can't expect to be like our, male counterparts that can just, kind of be the same throughout and more or less. And kind of need the same things. Our needs change, and our wants change, and what we're able to do changes. All of these things. Strength training, something I'm glad you mentioned, because although I'm not a menopausal, that's something that has also, actually, I have to say, before childbirth, really, really, really helped me. And I think, and that's something that my trainer talked about a lot, for women that are hitting perimenopause and menopause, is that strength training is really one thing you can be doing to support your body as you age. It's vital for, for your bones as well, not just for your muscles, for your bones and everything, because we do, as you say, we do go through such big changes. And that's one thing that I have, that now the baby's a bit older, I will go back into, because I've seen how much it has supported me through just pregnancy. And it's something that I thought, again, was just for men, lifting weights and, being in the gym like that. But actually, it's I am a firm believer that, we should all, as women, be doing strength training, 2-3 times a week. I think it's really, really going to help us.
Yeah, and that's just, and also finding something that you really enjoy. I always sort of ask, when I see clients, what do you love to do? What is it that you fundamentally love to do? And there's always not always, but I think we've lost a little bit of that joy, that we feel we should be doing things, but who the hell told you that you should be doing them? Oh, I read about it, or I Googled it, or my best mate, because she knows somebody who's in perimenopause, told me about that. So therefore that becomes the, the benchmark, doesn't it? And it's a little bit like foods as well. I don't work with I don't work with a meal planning. Okay, I don't go down that route, because everybody's individual. You know, a little bit like overnight oats. You know, overnight oats is, you know, the breakfast go-to. But not everybody can tolerate oats, you know, so you have to adjust it and add things for you, and, you know, maybe not have as much this, and add in a little bit of this, and put your proteins in, put your nuts in, put your blueberries in, whatever, but make it work for you. And then there are some people that go, absolutely can't have overnight oats, it just makes me bloaty and farty, and, you know, I can't get on with it. Great, okay, but let's not just put a caveat over that everything that we're eating is great for everybody. You know, I do think that we have got an opportunity to get curious about foods again, and what works, what doesn't work. And so I don't work with those sort of diet. You know, people come to me and go, oh, you know, just give me a diet, just give me a sheet. Absolutely not, because what works for me doesn't work for you. You know, you might love Brussels sprouts. I actually not a great fan of Brussels sprouts. Although they're really good for me, I can tolerate them, but I'm not a fan, you know. So
I bloody love Brussels sprouts. Love them. Love them.
And if I say to somebody, you know, I love avocados, and they go, oh my God, I can't get on with them. I hate them. So, you know, probably digress, but yeah, so I think my message really, my takeaway from this is, it's an ongoing, and it's not managing symptoms, it's looking at long-term health. It's looking at our long-term health from midlife onwards. You know, I want to age well, you know, I want my body to age well, and I want my hormones to be in great condition, supporting all of my body. I don't, and my, you know, my brain function and my cardiovascular function and my digestive function, you know, I don't want my body to be in a state of inflammation, which is what perimenopause and menopause is. It's a state of inflammation. And so I'll do everything I can to support it and nourish it. And that really is very much about this jigsaw piece. It's pulling in all of these pieces together, and then spending the time and consistency of things that work for you. Because, you know, I say, you know, I love to journal. I have a morning practice where I'll go out now and go for my walk. I'll get some sunlight. I'll come back. I'll have a really good nourishing breakfast. I'll journal. I'll do some stretching. I'll do maybe some yoga. I'll maybe do a HIIT, 10 minutes max, with some, you know, strength training, depending on how I feel, depending on how I check in. If I've had a really rubbish night's sleep, I might pare that back and do my walk and have something nice to eat and just do 5 minutes of lovely journaling and stretching. That's it. But 20 minutes, half an hour, I'm done, you know. So it's every day. It's not just the once in a blue moon, I'm going to think about myself. And that self-compassion, that self-awareness is every day, because there's some days that you can feel great and some days you can really pretty much feel like crap. So being kind to ourselves on those days and doing those small, what's the small step that you can do on that day that is not the big huge step, like I don't need to go to the gym, but what could I do? I could maybe get outside, I could go for a walk.
I think there is an opportunity here to, because, you know, like sometimes when you hit, you know, a crisis, and for some people this might seem as a crisis, but, you know, some people can go, I don't do, and some people can go, actually, okay, what am I going to do about this? And I wonder if there's a big opportunity here to really look at your whole lifestyle. And because what you're saying nutrition wise, which is the area I know the most about, is that the way you would approach menopause with nutrition would actually support your body in so many other ways as well. So I see it as an opportunity really to to actually feel better overall, not just with menopause symptoms, but overall as a human being, is a huge opportunity for a lifestyle change there. And the other thing that you say that is so important is do something every day and turn it into a habit.
Yeah, something that is fun, like it's fun for you, you enjoy doing, and like the amount of people that I see like running, but they hate running. Well, they're not going to stick at it. You're not gonna, it's not going to be something that you absolutely fundamentally love to do. It motivates you to get up because you feel amazing. You are going to do it because you've been told you should do it, and you've normally been told because it's via a GP or a clinician that you need to get moving, and you've not got that love for it. And so I speak to my client and say, what gives you a belly laugh? What do you absolutely love to do? And if they struggle and say, I don't know, what could you try? What did you years ago say, I'd love to go and do a bungee jump, but I never did it? Well, what stops you doing a bungee jump now? So it's sort of, let's explore, let's get curious, let's get, that creative spirit that I love is part of this. When we feel like we're just a bit lost and we've just not in control of our body, I found myself just retracting. I don't want to get out, I don't want to be meeting people, I'm just being moody, I'm being miserable, nobody's going to want to see me, and it was getting very small. My whole state of being was becoming very, very, very tight, and really did have to dig deep to then start to flourish and start to put those little seeds in place, that garden where you can water it, and then those little seeds start to appear. And at the point where I made some changes, did start to see a difference, and that motivated me to then continue. And that was cultivating this garden so that I was in charge of watering and nurturing and looking after and bringing light and the sunshine but that's the metaphor, isn't it, that we have an ability to flourish. But if we're going to go and grow in somebody else's garden who doesn't water us and doesn't look after us, then we're not going to flourish for very long.
And it's also, we have this ability to thrive, but also we have, this our responsibility to, to find our toolbox, to build it up, and to, to use then those tools on the, every single day, and maybe some more tools than others on certain days. Gosh, all the metaphors are just coming out now, thick and fast. But I think this is why, again, I said these conversations are important, because otherwise I think a lot of us wouldn't even know that you can build up a toolbox. You think that this is just something I have to grin and bear, and you're becoming reclusive, and you get to the mental health struggles because it's a pretty overwhelming, or it can be anyway, a pretty overwhelming time in your life. So thank you for sharing your journey, and also I guess through that how you help your clients, because I think a lot of people will recognize themselves in what you're saying, and I'm hoping also that a lot of people listening will go, oh gosh, I had no idea.
Yeah, I did a sort of masterclass the other night, actually, and that was exactly what they said. Like, geez, I had no idea that we can start building some of this stuff ourselves. I'm still waiting for an appointment, or I'm still waiting to speak to somebody, or I'm waiting. Well, my pushback with that is, there's always something that we can do.
Yeah,
we don't need to be waiting for anybody, and there are real fundamentals, real foundation stuff that we can do. And I'll go back just quickly, I'm talking to my daughter at the moment, she's 13, about preventative care, health care, what she can do to look after her hormone health. Now, she's at the other end of where I am at the moment, but we talk and we share, and, she's looking after her diet, she's looking after getting outside and walking and moving, and much more aware of actually what her body cycles are doing at 13, that I was never aware of, anything. I mean, until, I hit 50, and then I'm like, geez, this is a train crash, this is not nice here at all. But I think this is an education as well, isn't it, Mari, that actually, if we are going to look at long-term health, then we need to start much earlier than actually just getting into it and then going, hell, menopause, what is that? That is coming at me thick and fast, and I have no idea because I don't have any tools. And now I'm scrabbling around going, okay, where do I start? Wouldn't it be amazing if we actually started looking at, schools and really talking to them about well-being and nutrition and looking after themselves and their mental health, and supporting them through the challenges that our kids are going through at the moment. And so by the time they get to 50, they're well ahead. They have all of the tools in place. Wouldn't that be an amazing thing?
Yeah, that would indeed be amazing. I think, and I was gonna say until then, but we certainly can start in our own homes until then. And that in my house, we talk about, eating a varied diet is really good for our bodies and for our minds for several reasons. And we might use simpler language, saying literally, carrots and orange foods are good for your eyes and things like that. And, the salmon is good for your heart and your brain and your eyes and all of these things as well. And, but just salmon and nothing else wouldn't be so good either. So it's about having all the different colors. And because I think, as you said earlier, eating well for menopause and looking after yourself well in other areas as well for menopause will no doubt help the rest of you. So the sooner we can learn these things from your very young age, the better equipped we will no doubt be as and as not just as we hit menopause, but as we hit all kinds of other milestones, or as we experience other things in life. If we have these tools, then we will be so much better equipped to deal with whatever life throws at us, right?
Yeah, definitely. And also, I mean, part of this picture is the HRT as well, so that is part of that. Yeah, absolutely. Long-term health, and that is, a really massive part of this jigsaw puzzle piece, but again, there's, it's not everybody's choice, and it's not everybody who can take it. So then what? So if we look at this holistically and look at this as a whole, we are whole, then we can start to build up some of these beautiful pieces that actually support us longer term.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think it's so important what you're saying there. Listen, I'm going to put the information on how people can find you if they want to work with you in the show notes. And I also love your Instagram accounts. I always look at the beautiful walks you do in the morning, and they just inspire me. And I think sometimes, even if you can't get out yourself, just seeing a bit of sunshine, seeing a bit of water, I can smell the sea through your photos, and I think it just lifts me up on some grey days where I miss the sea myself, where I'm at inland. But thank you so much, Lindsay. And I always, when I'm down in Leamington, I always wave over to the Isle of Wight and go, hi, Lindsay.
Hopefully I can come across and we can, it'd be lovely to catch up, Mari. Hopefully soon.
It would be lovely. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. And if there's anyone who wants to get in touch with you, I will put all the information in the show notes. So thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Small Steps to Wellness show with Mari Craig. I am passionate about helping mums get their energy back through simple nutritional changes, because we know that if mummy is happy, the family is happy. If you would like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram under @smallstepstowellness, or visit my website smallstepstowellness.info. Speak to you soon.